Hello there, my name's Chad Jeffries, and thank you for tuning in to the Reboot Something podcast by Trilogy Innovations. We created this podcast as an outlet to share knowledge through the lens of IT professionals in government contracting. Now, our goal is to reboot something. Something being the topic of discussion for each episode. Topics range from cutting-edge technologies and how we use them to current events and the economic impact that stems from federal operations. Join me and Team Trilogy subject matter experts for in-depth discussions with guests to include partners, community leaders, technologists, entrepreneurs, and other organizations like Trilogy who are involved in improving the economic landscape through the technology movement. We believe that these conversations will help educate and inspire other professionals, political decision makers, industry leaders, and even the next generation of technologists. Our goal is to ultimately reboot the way we think about each topic that's going to be discussed. Be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast medium you're listening to, and check out our YouTube channel for the accompanied video for each episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Trilogy Innovations Reboot Something podcast. My name is Chad Jeffries, and I'm your host today. And joining me is Randy Cottle, Vice President and COO of Trilogy, and our CEO and President, Brandon Downey, sitting next to Randy here.
We did not coordinate this shirt. We just both showed up.
It's always
it is. Yeah, no matter what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But joining us today is our guest, Jim Estep. Jim is the CEO and President of the High Technology Foundation. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Excited about it.
We're excited to have you. So for some quick background on Jim and the High Technology Foundation. So he's been serving in this role since 2000 and has led strategic efforts to build a knowledge sector in north central West Virginia. And this includes the nationally competitive I-79 Technology Park located in Fairmont. And it has really served as the premier economic diversification initiative in West Virginia. And it really serves also as a recruitment tool for federal operations, the acquisition of federal operations that provide a lot of contracting opportunities for companies, specifically technology-oriented, so companies like Trilogy. So over the past 15 years, the Technology Park has been home to agencies like NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That took some practice. So NOAA for short.
You did it well.
Right. Thank you. And also the Department of Commerce and their cybersecurity headquarters. So over the past 6 years alone, it's generated $1 billion in contracting opportunities. So quite an impact on our economy.
Yes.
So, but Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, as you said, I've been the president and CEO of the High Technology Foundation since 2000. It's been quite a journey. But myself personally, I live here in Morgantown, and my background, I have a bachelor's and a master's in computer science. And then in addition to real estate development of the I-79 Technology Park, we've been involved in just all kind of technology research and development for the last 20 years. So it's been exciting, and the economic development aspect of it has been very fulfilling.
That's great.
Yeah, we actually had one of our first offices in the incubator down at the Technology Park. So, yeah.
That's right. Great. So we will, kind of go into our topic of discussion today, and so let's reboot the economic development in West Virginia. So who better to have this discussion with than Jim? So again, super excited to have him. But we're going to be talking about some of the biggest challenges facing West Virginia's economy and the people and businesses like Trilogy that are making strides towards building a brighter and more sustainable future for the mountain state that we love so dearly. So, and actually through the acquisition of federal operations. So stay tuned to the end of the episode where we'll share some insight and steps that even you can take to help reboot the economy of West Virginia. So, Jim, What would you say is the biggest challenge facing West Virginia's economy?
Well, I think if you talk to anyone, particularly those in policymaking, the number one topic is economic diversification. It's been pretty obvious that we really allowed our state to become way less diversified than it should have been economically. And that's important. But one of the side effects of a lack of economic diversification has been its impact on our workforce demographic. Our workforce demographic has become incredibly unbalanced relative to educational attainment. And what that means is that we just didn't create enough jobs in the state to provide career opportunities for folks who wanted to pursue higher educational attainment, wanted to get a degree in some kind of technology sector or something like that. And as a result, it's created one of the most epic brain drains in the country over the last 60 years. And West Virginia has been the worst in terms of losing population, which of course is evident in the fact that we recently lost a congressional seat.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest impact too, on a national stage and trying to get some of these federal dollars coming in, the fact that our people are having to leave the state. I know whenever I was getting ready to graduate, I was like, where am I going to go to get a job now? Right.
Yeah, you hate to step away from home, but there's other opportunities elsewhere. Yeah. But that's, from a Trilogy perspective, kind of use that as an anchor here for us. Trying to locate talent that's willing to come back. That's a hard thing to do, especially in the government sector.
Yes, absolutely.
Sector. Yeah. So a lot of our jobs are going to be the federal opportunities that exist today, but also trying to create a lot of those commercial opportunities to spark innovation and so forth.
I agree.
Yeah. Right. So, Jim, can you shed some light on economic diversification in the knowledge sector and what that actually, kind of means? If you could break that down a little bit, and maybe give an example of what that means for folks that maybe aren't in tune with that lingo.
Sure. I think Trilogy is a perfect example. We want companies like Trilogy that are having great success, that has the attitude that this company has, and that is recruiting people to come to our state and work. And they're providing jobs that are STEM-oriented or science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And those are the jobs that require higher educational attainment, which, of course, goes back to what I said earlier, and that is it will help us balance that workforce demographic in those terms.
Yeah.
And so economic diversification in the knowledge sector looks like what Trilogy's doing, but in a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
I think also I'll piggyback on that and say, the initiatives that were right there in that South Fairmont Technology Park, helped us at the very beginning.
Oh, absolutely.
If it wasn't for that, we would not exist today, right? So getting us to help, helping us network, develop partnerships, relationships with a lot of those companies in the area, which honestly, we said it before in the previous podcast, that those companies helped us as well, right? So it's almost like the West Virginia attitude, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like helping each other.
Helping hands.
Amen.
Right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand. So we have that. We still need those services today.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We're always talking about entrepreneurship, but it's always the chicken and the egg problem, right?
Right.
You kind of need that federal diversification, the opportunities here to actually help incubate more and more companies, especially in the technology.
Right.
Yeah. The government agencies really are the linchpin, because if we can recruit more of those into North Central, Southern, the Panhandle, the more that we have here in the state, all these other small businesses, whether it's us as contractors supporting those, or even there's a lot of these franchises that pop up like the Quiznos and all those things that are then supporting us because we're all here, right? So it has literally ripple effects.
Right.
And I think that's what's helping change the area, and that's what we're trying to do is recruit more of those organizations here.
And I think you'll also see it in a much more increase, especially in the skill set and so forth. Right?
Yes.
So we're trying to keep that here, change the demographics, if you will, and actually, enforce and basically, I'll use the word incubate again, more technology-based jobs, skill sets to actually support it.
Sounds like what we're doing with the internship program.
Absolutely.
That's
honestly,
a small
that
scale.
was the reason why it was started.
Yes.
You
Right.
know, if we can't keep our kids in the state, we want them to return at some point.
Right.
And if that is the case, we have to give them the skill set needed to elevate them in front of everyone else that's in their particular field.
Right.
And so if we can actually spare resources, and not just from a technology sense, Jim, we go through professional development. We teach them interviewing. We teach them, how to take a look and revamp resumes. So we give them more professional skills to actually take it outside if they have to, but bring it back eventually one day when the jobs come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this is a good segue to ask you, Jim. How do we create a basis in this state for any kind of higher educational attainment?
Well, I think we're hitting on it a little bit with some of the comments we've made. If you go back into the early 90s, when the FBI, Criminal Justice Information Service, came to our community, they came, they bought a bunch of land, they did a tremendous amount of infrastructure development. But one of the most significant things they did was provide significant amounts of contracting. And that had the effect of creating a little bit of a business case for the very kind of companies we want to come to the community to come. And because the contracting was federally based, there was a powerful requirement through the Small Business Administration to have small startup companies, specialized companies, 8A, so forth. And that had the effect of creating the beginnings of an ecosystem that not only attracted the kind of jobs we need, but also created a fertile ground for companies to be entrepreneurial, for individuals to be entrepreneurs. Again, Trilogy, perfect example.
Yeah.
So I think the key is there to try to do more of that ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think that, folks like Jim, I know Jim's very involved with the state and works with the policymakers, going back to what you said earlier. And I think it actually takes a lot of that. Like, we as industry need to be pushing our politicians and stuff to say, hey, in order for us to be successful and kind of recruit the talent or keep the people here, we need you doing your part to help us kind of get some of these federal agencies in here, again, to make that ripple effect or be that linchpin for our area for success.
Right. It's kind of interesting, to get them here. You also need the people to support it. And, when you start really thinking about it, it's not just one problem. It's many problems and many solutions that ultimately have to come together perfectly in order to spearhead this thing into the future. And every single one of us here want the best for West Virginia. That's the reason why we're having this podcast.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Our first major one is on economic diversity.
Well said. Absolutely.
So it's like every one of us care about it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, and it's not that there's no other out there that care, individual, company, and so forth.
Yeah.
But at some point, all of us have to come together and try to push this into the future.
I couldn't agree more,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the West Virginia mentality, when there's work to be done, we lace up our boots and we go to work.
No doubt.
And whether it's that means recruiting other companies to help with this initiative or whatever, because at the end of the day, we all win, right?
Yeah.
We want these, we're breeding competition to make sure that we have that continued growth.
Right. Well, what was West Virginia known for in the past? It was known for its, manual labor, the coal industry. Yeah. Right. For example. And so I think the shift now in what Jim has kind of created for the state is, or at least here in North Central West Virginia, is that shift to technology focused and technology service based. Right. Yeah. So
we say data is the new coal, if you will. They're trying to mine the data.
And that's an excellent point to make. I don't care if you're in business, academia, government, every business model, every operational model is becoming data-centric.
Very much so.
And technology is evolving around support of that data-centric operational model. Yeah. And so we in West Virginia, we have an opportunity to take the lead in that, for lack of a better description, data mining activity, just like we were in coal all these years.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And we're recruiting highly skilled jobs to go mine that coal. So
Right. Yeah. But so Jim, tell us some of the major programs that are part of the High Technology Foundation, or I guess Technology Park.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've been discussing, our model at the High Tech Foundation to try to create the basis for a knowledge sector is to create a business case that is of the necessary magnitude to attract the level of economic activity necessary to truly be a new sector. Mm-hmm. And I should clarify, what we're trying to do is diversify. We're not trying to replace or displace anything. Mm-hmm. For someone to be able to graduate from high school and go work in the coal industry and make just great money, that's fantastic.
Right.
But policymakers and everybody has to consider the fact that we need to participate in the national economy.
Yeah.
And to participate effectively and efficiently and maximize the returns for the state, our economy has to be diversified at multiple levels. And the most important level is our workforce. And that's where we have fallen short. And so we're not trying to replace classic industries with knowledge sector. We're just trying to make our overall economy healthier by adding this piece. And the recruitment of federal operations is difficult and challenging, but we've done it successfully over the last 30 years, and we've demonstrated that it can be done, and we've demonstrated that it can have the kind of impact that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. But we've been doing it. We haven't really rallied the troops, so to speak, across the state to maximize the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think the time has come now where we have to do that. We have to have the state involved. And let me just say, I have been thrilled in the last couple of years by the attention that the Justice Administration has given to this model. This federal anchor model, as we call it.
Right.
Governor Justice has personally pledged his support. Secretary Gaunch, the director of the Washington Development Office, Michael Graney, and more recently, the new Secretary of Economic Development, Mitch Carmichael. They've all jumped in, and actually, the governor has actually created a program that he calls Opportunity Move. Mm-hmm. Whose intention is to try to rally the state to do this, and it's starting to pick up some momentum.
Yeah.
And some of the most important players, in addition to the state, is our congressional delegation. Mm-hmm. Our congressional delegation is probably one of the most important elements. We are only one of, I think, 2 states that have both of our senators on the Appropriations Committee. Mm. Most people don't realize just how powerful that is, and we have to leverage that to the fullest extent possible. And I alluded to earlier that this is the opportunity, and it's the opportunity because over the last 20 or 30 years, you've seen this incredible growth of federal operations in the greater Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah.
And that really shouldn't have been allowed to happen, because what's resulted is this target-rich environment for our enemies. And it's really a bad situation because they could really disrupt our operations with minimal impact. That has to be corrected.
Yeah.
And it can only be corrected by moving some of that stuff out. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, the cost of operations in Washington, D.C. are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that region has now become the worst place in the country to spend taxpayer money. Yeah. That has to be corrected by, once again, moving things out. And West Virginia represents the ideal location for reducing that density. And so if we as a state come together under Opportunity Move, if Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, if we all come together and really make a push, then we will redefine, I should say, the West Virginia economy and be transformational.
Yeah, the Operation Move, we were actually just talking with Anna Rittenhouse about that the other day, right? And I know, especially North Central West Virginia has kind of been booming. I mean, we had manufacturing, we had the technology park, and then, there's CDC, NIOSH, Department of Energy, and a lot of these government agencies and all these surrounding businesses has really exploded in north central West Virginia. And to your point, you know, I know the southern part of the state has struggled a little bit, you know, as the coal mining industry's kind of decreased, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to raise our voice. We started an internal thing at Trilogy, like a Raise Your Voice initiative, and that's when we first called you to say, hey, you know, this is what's going on, and we wanted to do like a tech conference.
Yeah.
And then we called you about that, and then the more that we talked with you about economic development, it's not like, hey, let's just raise our voice here, but we need to raise our voice nationally. Right, and I think that's what we're trying to do here, making sure that everybody is aware, and if we all unite together, then we can make a difference here in the state, especially, like you said, pushing our Congress folks. So
I totally agree with that.
I think what Jim hit on it earlier, I'll just reiterate. We're not sitting here talking about replacing any of the classic industries with Western. That's not what this whole podcast is about. Right. It is about diversification, right?
Yes.
And now, granted, every single one of us, you know, are technologists, and we're kind of biased when it comes to it. But, you know, just to see, we see a lot of opportunity that are out there. And let's face it, I mean, the technology aspect is actually the foundation for a lot of the industries today.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like there's a lot of room to grow.
Well, and I would add to that, I would say that even every coal mining family should be strong advocates for diversification, because I know many, many families in West Virginia who have children, you know, maybe one child wanted to work in the coal industry and stayed, but the other two moved to either North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, wherever, because there weren't careers here. So what we've seen in West Virginia is really a breaking up of families because of this lack of diversification. And so, you know, one of the things we need to achieve in addition to balancing the workforce demographic is to bring families back together, allow families to stay together and not have to travel across the country.
Amen. Yeah. So what are some of the technology areas that you think are, I guess our region is well positioned to pursue?
Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is cybersecurity. That is a prolific technology area that's affecting everything and anything. And if you consider the work that's being done, for example, the FBI, in addition to that, there's some work at the U.S. Department of Energy here in Morgantown that is also on the forefront. But as you alluded to earlier in the beginning of our session, we have both the cybersecurity headquarters operation of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. We also have the headquarters operation of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And those are two leading cybersecurity operations in the country. And so we have this critical mass of cybersecurity activities with lots of companies, including Trilogy, that are supporting those operations.
Yeah.
And so that positions us to become one of the centers of excellence to support cybersecurity. The other area is data sciences, data analytics. This just like cybersecurity is becoming prolific. As I mentioned earlier, everything's data centric. And so that is an area that we are well positioned, but you know, we have, in addition to the cybersecurity operations of NOAA, we have 3 of their primary satellite ground stations.
Right.
We have their premier flagship supercomputing center, and the data, and they collect 99% of the climate and weather data for this hemisphere of the planet through the Fairmont operation.
Oh wow! I
And
didn't know that. Yeah, that's
and 99% of the R&D modeling is done at Fairmont. Most people have no idea about that, and so you know, there's been close to $1 billion in contracting through that operation, and I think you said that earlier, actually. So that's powerful in and of itself. But what most people don't know yet, but I'm going to try to make it my mission to inform everyone, all this data that's coming through Fairmont, it serves as the basis of a $7 billion commercial climate and weather industry that is expanding rapidly. What we're missing in north central West Virginia to be able to take advantage of that is a few spouts where the data can become local. And nobody else in the world has the 3 ground stations and the supercomputing center. So we have a competitive advantage if we can create that hook. And according to the U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're projecting that market to double to $14 billion in the next 5 years. So if we can put that in place, West Virginia not only could have a major piece of that market share, but could be the epicenter of it. And I don't have to tell you what a multi-billion-dollar expansion in North Central West Virginia would mean for the economy. I mean, it would springboard our economic development, economic diversification initiatives way forward.
It's interesting because I know. I'll plug MIS. You're MIS.
That's right.
Computer
WVU.
engineering, computer science.
Well, we all got masters in software engineering. So.
At WU.
At WVU, yeah.
So I will plug that, with the MIS program, there are a lot of students out there that are actually studying cybersecurity.
Yes.
And it actually makes me a little bit hopeful now. It's like, who knew it? I would come on the show and be hopeful. That, given the industries are actually right there in the South Fairmont area, that there's going to be opportunity that we just started the conversation with. They're going to be there to keep those students here.
Right. Well, Marshall just invested in a cybersecurity department as well, right?
That's correct.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you kind of hit on something that Chad was like, oh, I didn't know that was happening here. And that's exactly why they started the hashtag Yes West Virginia.
Right.
And that's part of what we're trying to do is raise our voice to make sure that people's aware of what's happening here. And they're like, oh, I didn't know they did that in West Virginia.
Absolutely.
Yes, West Virginia.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So that's why we're doing that, and that's why we're doing the Tech was to kind of play off that economic development to let other people know, we're doing artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're very heavy into cloud migration and data analytics. So the more people that's aware that kind of stuff is happening here, and you're not paying $65 a square foot, you're paying like 10, 15.
Right.
That's the huge difference.
Right.
Not to mention the cost of living. Just like California is really bad about this, where you have to have a $300,000 a year salary to afford a 1,200 square foot apartment. Right. Where if you're doing that kind of stuff out in West Virginia, you're living like a king. So to try to get more of those people out in this area and to see how you could develop with these organizations, I think will be a game changer.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation, a lot of value. So, Jim, could you maybe tell us or the audience even what can we do as best strategy moving forward to help push some of these initiatives, whether it's at a small scale, which I'm sure a lot of it has to start at a small scale, like what we're doing here at Trilogy, but for the folks maybe in the audience, what are some steps that they can take, the average West Virginian, if you will.
Well, I think number one, just being aware of the fact that we need diversification in the knowledge sector and that we need to rebalance our workforce demographic from an educational attainment standpoint is powerful.
Yeah.
But I think we have to also be vocal. We have to be vocal with the policymakers and say that we need this. This is critical. This is important to us. And creating a new economic sector is a tough thing to do for anybody, and certainly anybody who has great ideas I listen to all the time. But I do believe we do have a incredible opportunity with the recruitment of these federal operations, especially because of the things occurring in the D.C. area that I mentioned. So I think we need to just be vocal about that with every policymaker, whether that's the legislature, the governor's office, especially our congressional delegation, because they're really in the best position to help us leverage that. And so being vocal is one of the most important things that we can be. And I applaud Trilogy for being a leader and trying to help achieve that, both with this podcast and some of the events I know that's being planned. I think it's critically important.
Yep. I know I'm really excited about Tech and some of the things, the initiatives that we're planning to partner with our, whether that's competitors or competimates is how we kind of deem that term. But at the end of the day, we really just want to bring everybody together, have this open discussion, and have this open forum that we can actually affect change. And the only way we're going to do it is if you like, share, and subscribe, for one, but also to share this message. If you think that somebody would find this conversation valuable, that's how we're going to cause that change. Is to get it in front of people, and like what Andy and Matt Barrows from
the Economic Development
Office.
Office.
The Economic Development Office. They're doing an amazing job with the hashtag Yes West Virginia, everything that they're doing to shift everything to social. Magazines, newspapers are not getting to all ages and demographics. So
right.
to reach them through the power of social media is incredible. So applaud them for doing that.
I as well.
Well, one other thing is, we need to be getting the message out early, because a lot of people are like, well, let's go to the high school and try to get them involved in STEM, but really it's K through 12, right? So if take drones, for example. Fun, awesome technology. Everybody loves to play with drones, but the industry that can be around that, because again, us as data scientists, we're capturing that data, we're analyzing it and stuff like that. But there's the manufacturing piece, right? The batteries that need to be created, the drones themselves. We're going to need pilots.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of different things that can go around these industries. That's why. Bringing all this different technology has that ripple effect.
Right. It's like there's certain components already here.
There is.
Components already here. It's just trying to find a way to bring everything together to actually start, jumpstart that type of industry.
And I think I'd add one more thing to our discussion, and that is everyone listening to this podcast. If you know people around the country that have the kind of skill sets that we need. Let them know what's happening in West Virginia. Encourage them to check into it, because especially those who are from the state who had to leave, let them know what's happening so that they can take a look and decide for themselves if one of the growing career opportunities is something that would interest them. Yeah. We set up actually a website called comehome2wv.com. It's come home the number 2 wv.com.
Okay.
And so that people could come put their resumes in, and we would share them with whoever.
Yeah.
And we set it up so it could be anonymous,
Right.
so that folks won't get in trouble. But that's an important component too, because while we definitely want to make sure the workforce pipeline is being taken care of with our K through 12 and our higher education institutions, recruitment's an important component of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed, well said.
Yeah. And it's all those little initiatives just like that is helping to bring back people to the state, so we get that representation, so we can get more of that federal funding. The thing that bothers me the most is watching all the states around us get 3 to 10 times what we're getting.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why we're raising our voice.
Yeah. Or even the acquisition of these federal operations and having companies priming this that aren't West Virginia based companies, so that money's ultimately leaving West Virginia.
Right.
While it employs a lot of people here, and ultimately that money is not here and local. So
Well, that's just good. What Jim hit on earlier, sustainment and just diversification at the same time. Right? So there's definitely a charge for any of those two, and it's going to take a while to actually stabilize that over the future. But things like this, we're just a small company.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, we are trying to do everything we possibly can.
Right.
To again, I'll plug it again. Raise your voice.
Yes.
Shine a light on these type of issues, because guess what? We do not want to be reactive when it comes to whenever some of these things start to fail.
Yep.
Right now is the time to be proactive.
I agree.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well
I
said.
will say this, right? I wanna say thank you to you. A lot of this, it's your hard work that you put into it, and Randy and I are definitely thankful for you putting all this together.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And we pulled him back here from Pittsburgh because
Yeah,
he left the state.
I was gonna say,
because he graduated, he left the state.
Yep.
And we were like, get back over here.
yeah, absolutely.
Track great
And,
talent. Yeah,
and here we are.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
2 years later, have relocated 4 people back to West Virginia, which is incredible. So
really
imagine
need
the
to do that,
scale,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When we're a medium, large size company, what effect and stuff we're going to have. On
And
that
use
end,
programs like that the state has, like Ascend West Virginia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then use that as part of our recruiting tool to help get people back here.
Yep.
Well, and that's a very good point, actually. And I know we're probably short on time, but the SEND program demonstrates, as well as just the trend in remote workers, that demonstrates that the relocation of many of these federal operations to West Virginia is just that much more achievable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we mentioned a lot of different, links and reference materials. So some of the things that, we mentioned here today will actually be in the show notes below. So be sure to check those out. And again, like, share, and subscribe, and that way we can get that message out. It's just a simple click of a button, and it takes your help. So,
not that we're begging or anything.
Right. Definitely not, but we got to tell you. So, but Jim, do you have any final or closing thoughts for us today?
Well, I'm honored to be your inaugural guest.
Yeah,
I'm very honored by that, and I think what you guys are doing is great. And again, just to reiterate, the time is now for us to really take advantage of the opportunities for West Virginia.
Yep, completely agree. And thank you so much, because
absolutely.
I know I started out and asked, my second job was actually with the High Tech Foundation,
Right.
Right after my internship. So,
and that's where you and Brandon.
And that's actually where
you
I
and
met Brandon.
met.
Yeah.
So
We'll say that story.
Yeah. The jury's still on out if that was a good thing or not. So
we didn't want to bore the first episode.
Exactly.
So
we're going to have to cut that clip.
Chad's going to have a lot of editing.
A lot of editing,
no doubt.
for sure.
No doubt.
Yes.
We're leaving it all. It's authentic. It's authentic.
Yeah, that's right.
But Jim, thanks again so much for joining us.
Appreciate your
It's been a pleasure, and thanks for taking time out of your day. So, signing off from the Trilogy Innovations studios. This is the Reboot Something podcast, where we talked about economic development in West Virginia. So, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.